Mr. Darryl David.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, over the past 2 days, we have heard from more than 30 speakers. We've had hours of debates. We've had some rather bizarre images ranging from decapitations to usage of phrases like nuclear, chilling, afraid, fear. Makes you wonder sometimes whether we are watching a very disturbing B-grade post-apocalyptic movie. We've also heard some very compelling and logical and rational arguments as well. One thing, despite the sheer diversity of views, is clear, and that is that all of us in this House agree that we need to assiduously tackle deliberate online falsehoods that have the potential to cause social and economic damage by putting in place a response framework to prevent such hoaxes, misinformation and falsehoods from negatively impacting our society. Of course, where we differ is the form and manner of that framework. I rise in support of the Protection from Online Falsehood and Manipulation Act, POFMA, as a mechanism that will curtail the potential dangers of falsehoods and misinformation, but I do have some points of clarification I would like to raise in my speech. A key tenet of the POFMA is that deliberate online falsehoods and misinformation campaigns will undermine social trust among communities, lead to the diminution of confidence in our public institutions, and inflict harm on public interests. Indeed, Clause 4 of the Act clearly spells out instances where public interest will be compromised and that the Act can be invoked when such instances occur. Now, while Clause 4 spells out these instances, it also provides the government some discretion to act under POFMA. As such, I would imagine that while falsehoods that deliberately promote ill will among different communities would warrant the government to invoke POFMA to, and I quote, prevent feelings of enmity, hatred and ill will between different groups of persons, other forms of falsehood and manipulations might be less clear-cut. For example, it is stated in point F in Clause 4 that POFMA could be exercised, and I quote, to prevent diminution of public confidence in the performance of any duty or function of or the exercise of any power by the government, unquote. Could the government please provide some clarity or examples of incidences or what it could consider as a diminution of public confidence in our public institutions or bearers of public office that would result in the government exercising their powers under POFMA? Another point I would like to raise pertains to the appeal mechanism that goes via the courts. The present Act provides an eventual avenue for appeals against the government's decision to be made to the courts after an appeal to the minister. Now, there has been some criticism that this might result in an appeals process that is too overwhelming and even financially prohibitive. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I had initially considered the possibility of having the appeals process heard by a tribunal rather than through the courts. However, I realized that this would then raise the issue of who would appoint the members of this tribunal, as if the tribunal was appointed and approved by the executive branch of the government, then it would ultimately be handling an appeal on a decision made by that same executive branch. So I do see the merits of the appeals being handled by the judiciary, which is set apart from the executive's branch. However, sir, the reality is that for most people, the prospect of, quote-unquote, going to court is an intimidating one and could actually be onerous and demanding, especially for individuals and or organizations of modest means who might not be financially equipped for such a legal appeals process, or who might just find the whole process of legal appeal via the courts too overbearing and intimidating. Nevertheless, I do appreciate the fact that the Minister of Law has stated that the appeals process via the courts will be kept as affordable and simple as possible, and I trust that the government will do periodic reviews of this process to ensure that it always remains so. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, falsehoods that get repeated often enough and shared widely enough will be perceived to be true. We need to be cognizant about the slow drip effect of deliberate online falsehoods on our social fabric and how it could erode trust between communities. As such, I believe that the government has the responsibility to nip deliberate attempts to undermine social cohesion before these attempts can take root. However, I also feel that we need to get the balance right between making the right decision when it comes to curtailing deliberate online falsehoods and being judicious in how those decisions are made. Notwithstanding my concerns, I ultimately believe that the potential benefits of this Act far outweighs the potential pitfalls, and I thus conclude my speech in support of the bill. Thank you.